You are listening to the TV Obsessive podcast, brought to you by TVObsessive.com.
Okay, welcome back to the TV Obsessive podcast. We're here today for episode 136. Happy New Year, January 2nd. As always, my name is Cameron Crane, executive editor for TVObsessive.com, joined by Ryan Kirksey, writer contributor for the site. How you doing today, Ryan?
Doing great. Yeah. Happy New Year. Likewise. Also happy great TV month, it seems like. We are really embarking on not just a new year, but maybe one of the best TV months or at least premiere months of the year, it seems like.
Definitely got some good stuff coming. Also, looking back at 2025, I realized I don't know if I appreciated how spoiled we were
Yeah.
as it was happening, Still working on putting together our best of or favorites from 2025 lists and thinking about what I'm going to choose myself. And it's like, oh, I forgot we had like the Righteous Gemstones in there, and
hmm
the Rehearsal season 2, and just a lot of good TV. And hopefully 2026 will sort of bless us as much. Do anything for New Year's? Eat any Hoppin' John yesterday?
Yes, we have every year, and I don't know where this tradition started. It certainly started with on my wife's side of the family, but apparently the good luck, start your year off right. One of the things you're supposed to eat. So we have um, pinto beans, cabbage, cornbread, sausage. Apparently, like this combination of things is something, at least here in this area, something that gives you good luck to start the year. So we've done that for, I don't know, 15 years in a row or something like that.
That's interesting. That sounds a bit like Hoppin' John, but you don't call it. Do you call it Hoppin' John? What do you call it?
No, I've never called it anything like that. No.
Are you familiar with the term? Hoppin' John is, I mean, it's like black-eyed peas and I think collard greens.
Okay. So, that's right. I didn't know. I said pinto beans. No, it is black eyed peas. We have but ours are all separate. Are you talking about like a dish that's all together?
Yeah.
Okay, no, ours are like in separate portions, but it sounds like the same thing.
Yeah, maybe it's regional, I suppose. It was like an ex-girlfriend from Tennessee, I think, that introduced me to Hoppin' John. Being from like Michigan and then Ohio, they were like nothing,
Yeah.
people eat like ham. Like, why?
Yeah.
I'm a
Well, yeah,
vegetarian
here
myself,
in
so
In
eat
Texas,
my
we
ham.
supplement, with some sausage, some cornbread, some, things like that, and that becomes the whole meal.
Yeah, I'm not sure why the sausage or ham, or I'm not sure if that has any symbolic resonance. I think Hoppin' John often has some level of pork in it or something as well. Although I used to make a vegetarian version. I know though that like the black eyed peas are supposed to represent like gold coins, and then
Yes,
the
yes.
greens is like money. So it's from my personal experience though, it never like panned out to where like I ate Hoppin' John on New Year's Day, and then like, oh, dollar bills,
Yeah. Yeah. You got to go buy some lottery tickets after you eat it, I guess.
Yeah, it's supposed to bring good fortune. I know people do lottery tickets too. Anyway, we've probably gone on about this long enough. My point about the Hoppin' John, is that it's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah.
like I actually, if you get some cornbread, yeah, that too, and good stuff. Anyway, and then I forget if you eat leftovers, then it has a different name, like Skip and Susie or something. I don't think that's right, but
I've heard of Papa John's. I've never heard of
it's
Skip and
something
Susie.
like that. It's something like that. Anyway, we're gonna talk about Stranger Things today. The finale came out on New Year's Eve. So if the people are caught up on that, first, as per usual, we'll talk about some other things we've been watching. What's caught our eye in the news, which isn't that much. We have one thing on our sheet,
Mhm.
which was the one thing each of us noticed. Um, but yeah, what else have you been watching this week, Ryan?
Yeah, some time off. So I'm going to catch up with some things I was in the middle of. Also, binge some certainly some guilty pleasure things that you and I love. One of which being I am 6 episodes through the 9 episode season of the UK Celebrity Traders. I guess the first season of the celebrity version. Couple of observations. Number one, this might be one of my favorite seasons in all the Traders universe. I really love this so far. And number
Yeah,
two, at least through the 6 episodes. This group is really, really bad at finding the traders. So it's it's becoming more interesting that way. The more they fail. So yeah, just this is what has me hooked. I'll probably finish it tonight.
Yeah, I thought that season was quite good. As you say, as I recall, they are bad, but they're not like overly stupid somehow. Like
No, no, they're actually smart. Just can't
because
find
like I recall some previous season, I can't even remember which one. It might even have been like the Australian version or something. But I recall watching a season of the trailers before, and just being like, "Wow, these people are, they're just all very stupid."
them.
But yeah, they seem slick, and I think I enjoyed that. I didn't necessarily recognize most of the people, but you
Hmm.
can tell that they are like professional performers. You know what I mean?
Definitely,
And
definitely.
it's an interesting distinction from how in the US version, traditionally, they've been like, we're going to bring in quote unquote celebrities, but they're like reality TV stars.
Yeah.
So I kind of appreciated how with this UK version, it was like, no, it's like, professional actors and comedians and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
most of them are either actors or broadcasters, or one of them is titled a presenter, or they are comedians. People who are used to being in front of others, to being demonstrative, sort of performing, or at least perform some sort of role in some way. And so, yeah, it's not just I'm here to be competitive and beat everybody. It's I know sort of how to engage with others and play the game and play a role that I'm asked to play. So it's been really entertaining, I thought.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. The new season of the normal UK version, I believe, premiered, but we won't get it on the Peacock probably for a while until after it's done. So, unless you have other ways of, seeking that one out, which I know there are ways. I don't know if it's on
Yeah.
like BritBox or whatever, but the US version, I think, comes out in about a
Less than a
week,
week. Yeah, about a week from right now,
Thursday
maybe
night.
less than a week from now. Yeah.
I think it's 8th. So that'll be interesting. It's been, well, since last year that I've watched the trailers week to week,
Yeah, that's right.
and it's definitely a very bingeable show. So getting back into the week, I probably will watch it week to week because people will be talking about it and so on. You don't want to get spoiled, but it definitely is frustrating. As I've told you many times, when I am binging it, I often stop watching 10 minutes into an episode, after breakfast. Um,
Yeah.
speaking of binging things, I binged the first season of Hijack this week, largely on your recommendation. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Six or seven episodes, right? It's fairly short season, isn't it?
It was 7, yeah,
Okay.
and I actually think it could have been 8. I don't know. It's we've basically decided to let people know that Hijack season 2 comes out here in a couple of weeks, and we're going to talk about it on the podcast. So hopefully people will enjoy that. And if you want to catch up with us, watch season 1 before that. It's on
Mhm.
Apple TV. And like I literally watched it all in one day personally, which is a little extreme for me, but it's still only
Yeah.
like how many hours was that? Like maybe 6
Yeah.
or something like that. Um, but it definitely hooked me. I don't know that it's deep or meaningful, and there are also definitely some things you could poke holes in terms of its,
Mhm.
plausibility or what have you, I suppose. But just going along for the ride, I did find it to be an enjoyable time. And then there are some open questions more than I kind of thought there would be.
Yeah, we're gonna have to really see. We've touched on this, I think, a couple weeks ago. Yeah, the plausibility, or how someone like Idris Elba, who plays this main character, can get himself stuck in a situation like this again, in some capacity. So that's sort of a big bow they need to tie up as they start the season. But maybe there are some connective tissue to things that happens in the first. We don't know yet.
Yeah, and I don't want to get into spoiler territory right now, but I found myself thinking it almost has to be more intentional this time. It can't
Hmm.
you can't just be like, oh no, I found myself on another hijacked plane, you know. So we'll see. I am very curious to see what they do with that, to what extent they feel like, okay, we've got a season 2 and we're going to carry forward plot threads from season 1, or versus to what extent they're like, oh, well, this is a show about an intense situation in an enclosed space and we have to recreate that setup. And maybe they'll find a way for it to be both, and hopefully it's good. But
Yeah.
yeah, I did enjoy
No,
watching season
first
one.
season is certainly entertaining. I did watch it. I think after the second week, I was caught up, so didn't binge it. Can imagine that's a pretty intense experience to binge all that at once. But yeah, we'll do it week to week here as it comes out. I think mid January.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was very bingeable. I mean, it was,
Oh
but
yeah,
I mean, it was one of those things. It wasn't necessarily my intention to watch the whole show in one go. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But I forget what day it was. Yeah, it's that kind of like lazy week anyway between Christmas and New Year's and everything. And so, maybe I started watching the show around 7 p.m. or something, and then was like, oh, I'm just gonna finish. Just gonna
Yeah, why
finish.
not?
Why not? Um, in terms of the news, we don't have much, which probably makes sense given the that lazy week I've been mentioning. But we did get a trailer for the Malcolm in the Middle reboot and a release date, which didn't make a direct note of here. I think it's in
Coming in
April.
April, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's in April. Um, Thoughts on this? As I recall, I've maybe watched the original show more than you have, maybe unless you've watched it more since the last time we talked about it.
No, I've caught. I mean, I don't know how many of these. Several dozen of these. My son was watching all of them, so caught quite a few of them. Can't say I've seen all of them, but just looking at what they're doing here, which looks like a 4 episode revival, takes place, I don't know, 10 to 15 years after the last season is ended. I quite like the premise
Yeah.
of sort of bring everybody back together for a specific event and hijinks ensue and Malcolm is unsure he wants to do it, and so yeah. I mean, for 4 episodes, absolutely, I'll check back in with it.
Yeah, agreed. And I have not seen every episode myself either. This is one of those things where I feel like I've seen a lot of episodes of Malcolm in the Middle, but it was in that era where it was more like, oh, this is on, okay,
Yeah, yeah,
It wasn't necessarily appointment viewing for me. I think even I saw a lot of stuff in syndication. Um, because I mean, it came out, I mean, it's been what, like 25 years or something like that since it
yeah. I think it came out first in two
premiered.
thousand. I think for 7 seasons. It's been a long time.
Yeah. So, um, I'm not sure that I've even seen the finale of the original
I know I
run.
have not.
So I might pop in and try to check that out. But then, yeah, I'm on board for the reboot. Hopefully they do a good
Yeah,
job. Of course, Dewey's been recast. Um, for because the original actor doesn't want to do it. He's like, he doesn't
right.
act anymore, right? He's like a college professor or something. I don't know. I don't remember. So it's like something like maybe he's a grad student, something like that.
Yeah. No, that was
Um,
interesting. They at least got Frankie Munoz to come out of retirement to do this. There may have been one other that has, but yeah, the actor that played Dewey, just happy to sit this one out.
yeah. So I'm curious, how does this go? Hopefully it's good. But I think, one of the things we talked about before when this came up is, are they going to want to make more than this? Like, what exactly
Yeah,
is going on
exactly.
here? Is this like just a nostalgic dip back into Malcolm in the Middle or what? Yeah. So because I mean, it's a weird mix in terms of the cast, right? Like, I feel like after Breaking Bad, Bryan Cranston became big time. You
Yeah.
know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah. I would
So
think that a lot of this obviously depends on what does Frankie Muniz want to do and not do. But I would imagine if you're slicing up the pie, the largest chunk has to be when and is Bryan Cranston available or interested in doing this thing.
yeah, so I mean, this is why I was sort of surprised when this first started coming out as like a rumor, even, because it's like two sides of the spectrum. You've got Frankie Muniz who quit acting, and then you've got Bryan Cranston, who you feel like is an A-lister or something,
Yeah. Right.
So it's like on both sides of the spectrum, you have this question of they want to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
So we kind of it'd be interesting. Hopefully it's good. I don't know if we mentioned it just put me in mind of it a little bit with the King of the Hill reboot that
hmm
I think we did mention that that was going to have another season. But I did read at some point that it got renewed for another season after that as well.
Ah, okay.
Um,
Okay.
so with King of the Hill, it seems like they're saying, "Oh yeah, man, we're back. We want to keep making this." You
Absolutely.
know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I don't quite expect that with Malcolm in the Middle, but I suppose we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's basically what we have in the news. I guess,
That's it.
speaking of nostalgia, we're talking about Stranger Things. Hopefully people are up to speed. Um, again, the series finale aired the other day on New Year's Eve. I think a lot of our focus will probably be on that, but spoilers are on the table for, the entire series here. Um, so we'll put in a little bit of music as per usual and be back with you in just about 10 seconds.
Okay, we're back to talk about Stranger Things season 5, primarily discussing the finale of episode 8, The Right Side Up, which is also the series finale. This episode and much of season 5 written and directed by the Duffer Brothers. In episode 8, in their mission to destroy the Mind Flayer and Vecna, the team is divided into two groups. Hopper, Eleven, and Kali go to the Hawkins lab in the Upside Down to try to enter Henry's mind. The rest make their way to the radio tower to wait for the Abyss's descent onto Hawkins. 11, Kali and Max enter Henry's mind, but he escapes and tricks Hopper into breaking the connection his team has made with Henry. The military tracks that team to the lab and kills Kali, but 11 then turns around and kills all of them. Holly leads the escape of the other 11 children out of Henry's mind, causing the Abyss to stop descending further towards Hawkins. And in the Abyss, Will sees into Henry's mind and learns that Henry was turned evil when he was exposed to something belonging to the Abyss when he was just a child. Will tries to persuade him to fight it, but Henry has fully accepted his fate as Vecna. The Mind Flayer rises up as a giant monster in the Abyss, but the kids and teens are able to destroy it while Eleven defeats Vecna in a one-on-one battle. The group rescues the captured children, and Joyce beheads Vecna, killing him once and for all. Hopper and Murray escape with the group, but leave explosives behind to destroy the Upside Down when they are out. When they're arrested by Dr. K back at Hawkins, Eleven decides not to let them capture her and stays in the Upside Down while it is destroyed. In an epilogue, 18 months later, the older teens reunite and vow to stay in touch as they go separate ways. Hopper proposes to Joyce at Enzo's after becoming the town sheriff again. And the five friends graduate and play a round of Dungeons and Dragons that night. And as it ends, Mike imagines the group's individual futures and provides a theory of how Eleven might still be alive. So yeah, this show has been
Yeah.
with me, with my family for 9, 10 years. I think I told you we went with a big group of people and watched this finale in a theater and got the full, experience, emotional and excitement and otherwise. So I do have a lot of feelings about this finale and this season as a whole. I'm curious your just what background or led you to and what experience you've had with it so far in the couple days since we've seen it.
Yeah, but let's start. Can you say a little bit more? I'm curious, like what your experience was like seeing it in the theater, because I just watched it at home on the Netflix. Um, I don't know. Did it feel theatrical? I guess. I mean, I saw some people on social media, for example, kind of complaining a little bit about some of the special effects. How was it? How was it
Yeah.
theatrically?
I actually thought it felt like being in a movie. It did feel theatrical. It felt big. It felt as though, while certainly I think there were some impressive things about the structure and composition of the episode, being there in a theater with 200 people and the cheers and the tears and the lots of things. It was interesting, and I was very glad that I was able to experience that.
Yeah,
Um, lots of emotions from my people in my family and people that were in the group that we were with. And maybe some unexpected things, and we left with a lot of questions, but it was cool to kind of process it and digest it with people afterwards. So never experienced the finale of a television series like that, obviously, and so was glad that
yeah.
I did it, and hope that they do more things like this, at least as we enter this sort of new age of streaming and television and theaters and how the stuff can all work together.
Yeah, the communal aspect's really interesting, and I would expect, I don't know if people tend to think about this a lot, but the sound is probably
Mm,
almost even more than the big screen.
yes, yeah,
Just
that's
thinking
right.
back to when I went to the MoMA and they were airing episodes of Twin Peaks: The Return, and that experience, however many years ago that was now, 7 or 8 years ago. of yeah, it's great seeing the thing on the big screen, but then also the surround sound or whatever of the theater, as opposed to whatever you have at home is probably not as good. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
that's absolutely true.
uh, so cool. Yeah, and there were a lot of emotional moments. They worked for me. Hopefully, they worked for you. So this isn't a complaint that I did find myself thinking at certain points. It was like, you guys sure are taking your time to like say the things to each other when there's an imminent threat of death. You know what I mean? Um, but I think ultimately that's okay. Personally, um, I have almost no complaints about this.
Yeah, yeah.
I've seen some other people who have complained, who've been a bit negative on it. I can see why people might be complaining about it being overly drawn out or padded or maybe some other things. But I'm looking forward to kind of digging into it. At some point, I'm going to kind of go on one in terms of how I interpret things to warn you. But I overall thought that this worked and stuck the landing thematically for me in terms of how I
Mhm.
interpret the show. What about you?
Yeah, I think I've had a lot of thoughts since I've seen this. And the more I think about it, the more I think this is how a show like this had to end. Not only with sort of these final scenes and these character beats and how we are left with these characters, but also the resolution of what happened, how they came to that resolution. I think the complaints that I have are more with the season than with the finale. Some of the ways of sort of how we got here, not necessarily what the finale did for us and did to us. I think that yeah, there are some nitpicks of the finale and how they pace things and what they did in certain places and what I didn't see or hope to see. But that's more just a man, it would have been nice after spending so much time with the show to see this person one more time or have it connect to this
Yeah.
thing that I was hoping for than just a, well, I think that structurally or plot wise they did this wrong. That I can't complain too much about that.
Yeah. Well, so it might be fruitful to dig in thinking about the season as a whole, you know. Before we do, along the lines of what you're saying, I did have a couple of quick questions along these lines. And they like, what happened to Vicky?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's I thought this was pretty weird because they brought her into the fold by
Yeah.
the end of season 5. And then when you get to the epilogue 18 months later, she's just gone. And like, look,
Yes.
fair enough, particularly at this age. And, it was like Robin's moved away and all of that,
Hmm.
fair enough, right? The relationship didn't last. Yeah, okay, fine. It's not like I'm saying that's not plausible, but
Yeah.
it just that felt a little off to me in terms of how they kind of got me invested in this character and a relationship with Robin
Yeah.
and brought her into the group, and then she's just gone.
Yeah, there's no resolution to that, or even just a comment of where she is, or if they're together, or oh, it'll be good to see her when we visit here, whatever. Just nothing in the epilogue seemed a little odd. I mean, there's some things about other characters that I wish had appeared or not appeared, but to not have, yeah, Vicky in after she did become such a sort of core part of protecting Max and being a part of that final episode, just for where she was, that was a little odd.
Yeah, and as you say, I think even just throwing a couple lines into the dialogue between Robin and Steve when they're on the rooftop or something,
Right.
it's just
Right.
it felt weird that she was just like never mentioned again.
Yeah.
Um, and some of the moments, again, these are small complaints because I think it works overall. There was similar stuff that occurred in the finale a couple of times where they kind of left something on something of a cliffhanger. Like the military shows up at the church, the military shows up at the radio station, and they just like
Hmm.
never return to what happened there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like um you just kind of have to, fill it in later, I guess. And
Yeah.
that's
I would say the
fairly minor.
military aspect of not just the season, but how they left the finale may have been my biggest, not about complaint, but sense of, yeah, okay, what has actually happened here? Like they all got arrested right before the Upside Down blew up. Now they're all fine. This town is back to normal after 18 months. What was the purpose of Dr. K? What was she there to do? And what is she doing now? Or is there, has she been arrested for war crime? I mean, it's like, what was sort of the intention of having all of that group and the conflict with them if they don't really matter once, the upside down is gone? We have no resolution to any of that.
Well, I think that has more to do with 11. Let's do that. Like, okay, so let's try approaching it this way. You mentioned having some, complaints or whatever word we want to use about the season as a whole. Let's try to
Hmm.
dig back into that and how it carries forward. And then I don't know. I feel like at some point I'm just going to go on some rant of how I'm interpreting the show. Hopefully it'll be a bit more of a dialogue than that, but rather than, I don't know, just kind of jumping around piecemeal, I think it might work better um to do it where, you know if there were things that didn't quite work for you about the season as a whole that
Hmm.
culminated in this finale, to start with what those are, and then I'll respond to that. That's what I'm thinking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would say the season as a whole, that there were two, I think, primary things that I didn't really latch onto, or that gave me a sense that this could have been done better. Number one was they kept increasing the size of the cast and importance of those characters within the cast and introducing us to characters who became a main focus in this story over these 8 episodes that we had zero ties to before. I think Nell Fisher, who played Holly, was fantastic, but to make Holly such an important part of this
Mhm.
season was, I thought, an interesting decision for me. And the addition of Holly, Derek, Vicky, Dr. K, the various military goons, Kali comes back, or just sort of the expansion of what was already a very large cast, I thought did a disservice to some of the characters might like to have seen a better resolution or ending for. That would be point number one. And then point number two would be that so much of this season seemed to focus on describing plans, coming up with plans, giving exposition to people that didn't know it, explaining things that, boy, we just, so much of this show has been centered around the mysterious and the action and the exploration of what's going on. And there was just so much of having to explain to people what our plans are and what we're doing.
Yeah, no, I get the latter thing you said lands better more for me than the former. Like, I saw someone, yeah, wherever, social media, whatever. I think it was in a Discord, I meant, but whatever. Saying something like, decided to just jump in and start watching season 5 of Stranger Things, never having watched the show before at all, and having this dad moment of not knowing what's going on at all. And in my mind, I thought that's weird because they keep telling you what's going on in the dialogue, like, pretty explicitly.
Yeah.
But I mean, I get it if you don't have any background of the show at all. I still like,
Yeah.
okay, like I get that, but it definitely, there's a lot of that kind of exposition. And look, I guess the best I can say on that front, um, and I don't know how this will land for everyone listening or for you, but part of it for me is like I've never exactly thought that this was a great show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
think it's entertaining. I'm tempted to say it's a kid's show.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that's fine, or like a young adult show. It's like reading young adult fiction or whatever, right? It's like
Yeah.
you're not reading
Yeah.
Faulkner or
Right.
something like that, but you can get something out of it. They're interesting themes. I mean, like I love the Hunger Games trilogy, for example. I thought
Sure. Yeah.
those books were way better than the movies that they made. Um, but again, not, I don't know, trying not to sound too pretentious or whatever, but
Yeah. No, I understand.
hopefully you take my point. So for me, some of this stuff, I just feel like, well, this is the kind of show that it is. You know what I mean? That like that there is the long exposition where like Dustin's explaining how the upside down works or whatever, because he
Yeah.
figured it out in 20 minutes reading a notebook.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
or the fact that even as there is the like imminent threat of death bearing down the two characters take 5 minutes to talk about how much they care about each other,
Yes, yes.
or like, 11 telling Hopper, like, I need you to believe in me, I need you to, all of that kind of stuff. You're kind of
Yeah.
like, isn't there a ticking clock going on right now? But the point is, you don't think about that. You just roll with it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that's the best I
yeah,
can do
yeah.
with some of that. Um, on the other thing you were saying, I think it's interesting because I feel like, in a way, what happens here in season 5, or volume 5, as I think they like to call
Hmm.
it, really it broadens the stakes, right? So if one of the complaints is about, I mean, at least you put this in our notes, and seen other people say things like this, a worry about the stakes of the season, or main
Hmm.
characters not dying, or like maybe you want to say something like you feel like they're always protected by plot armor or something like that. Again, it's like it's a kid show. But no. But at the same time, I want to say that the stakes become bigger and broader, and that's part of what's going on with the focus on Holly and the other children and so on, right?
Yeah.
Um, I know I've floated to you before when we weren't really digging into the show, the idea that um, I interpret as basically being about the horrors of puberty, right?
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
so I continue to think about it this way all the way through season 5, and not everything lines up directly or whatever on this kind of allegorical interpretation, but to think about the upside down, or these dark forces or whatever, as kind of representing those hormones and impulses and drives that, like, don't quite make sense, and start disrupting everything when,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
as you
yeah.
have pubescence, like I had an experience like this myself. It doesn't quite line up directly either, but like I played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons when I was in middle school, and that group I played with, like, as we entered into high school, fell apart.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know why? It's like, I don't know. It's just various reasons, but like the broadest overall, I think, would be like that problem of adolescence or whatever, right? So to me, I think that in a meaningful way, it's the main theme of the show, and the risk that represents, right? Because it's like a question of, how do you deal with that? How do you grapple with it, as it were?
Hmm.
Um, so going all the way back to season 1, Will gets sucked in, right?
Yeah.
And we've been introduced to Henry and all of that. Um, Playing on his fear, I think, in particular, because Will is gay and he's discovering that. But more broadly, it applies to all of us in terms of that problem of, I don't know, and it's like you want to fit in,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
was, if you think about it, it's like that's kind of not a problem until you're entering puberty, right? Like when
Hmm.
you're a younger kid, it's going like, whatever, man, that kid really loves My Little Pony. Yeah, that's fine, you
Yeah.
know. And so that's how I interpret things. That's like the broad frame that I'm interpreting all of this in, where then kind of the point of the moral of the story is about confronting that, and confronting it honestly, and being true to yourself,
Yeah.
which I think all of our kind of main cast manages to do, right?
Yeah.
Where
That's
the
why I
bad guys
thought,
don't.
yeah, yeah. That's why I thought, and there was obviously a nice reference to him as Dustin gives the graduation speech. That's why I thought Eddie Munson was such a good character. And when he was presented in the show, as they are moving really from this stage of adolescence and preteen into teenagers, high school, the things that are expected of them, the roles that they're now asked to play. One's on the basketball team, one's trying to still play Dungeons and Dragons. One is not really fitting in. They're separated in different states. And Eddie comes in and talks about this idea of individuality, and that people are going to think certain things and judge you in certain ways without having information about you or what this is, or and this whole hysteria about the game and about the satanic curse and all this stuff. And Eddie
Yeah,
coming in and sort of speaking to all of that, and how it all came full circle, and really enjoyed, maybe more than anything in the finale, the idea of how it ended with, um, Mike talking about they are going to go separate ways. They are going to do different things. They are going to be individuals and different people, and they may, have different paths in their lives. But it's just the natural course of, you know, our door closes and then that basement door opens again for another group of kids to come in and do all this all over, right? As our time is ended. And so that sort
Yeah.
of run, I really appreciated just sort of that theme of this show. And I thought they stayed consistent to that, specifically as some people had problems with the last few seasons. I thought they stayed consistent with that.
Right. So this is why it makes sense to me. You mentioned the stuff with Holly and Derek and the other children, right? There's like 12 of
Yeah.
them, but really Holly and Derek are the two main ones who get
Hmm.
screen time and focus. Um, from the beginning of the show, there was the younger kids who you might be tempted to say are like the main protagonists: Dustin, Mike,
Yeah.
Will, Lucas, but then also the older teens: Steve,
Hmm.
Jonathan, Nancy, right?
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
still they're still trying to figure stuff out too. They're just at a
That's
different.
right.
So like it kind of makes sense to me that here, as it reaches the end, it starts focusing a threat on um the one step younger, right? Because
Mhm.
now it's like Holly and her peers, they aren't little kids, they're like preteens, right? they're
Yeah.
they're right
That's
on
right.
that cusp again. So I guess that worked for me.
Yeah.
What do you think of my uh interpretation that Henry is basically a black pilled incel?
That he had no, well, I don't want to say he had no control over this, but he was exposed to something that put him in a position he could not avoid. I don't know. I've seen a lot of debate about whether or not, as Will's trying to extract Henry away from Vecna and try to, say you have good in you all of this, and he refuses to do it. If he had a choice there or not. I found that interesting, and have heard that or seen some of the quotes from the Duffers that sort of the genesis of all this, the origin of all of it is sort of where the spinoff is going to go. That's obviously not related to Henry or not related to Vecna or any of that, but just sort of what this is.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, I'm kind of left with a internal struggle of do I think that Henry could have been saved or not? That's not really made clear to us.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about excuse me, I'm a little worried about the idea of the spinoff, particularly a lot, if it is going to be about what you were just saying. Um, there are definitely some things that maybe don't quite line up with how I'm reading it. I did think it was interesting though that, you know, I have been for a while basically reading Henry along these lines, Henry slash Vecna along these lines of
Mhm.
like being an incel. So I thought it was kind of interesting as the finale carried forward that scene in the cave that
Mhm.
he was almost literally blackpilled, right? Because like the
Yeah.
thing that he finds in the suitcase is kind of a
Oh,
cool
a big
shaped
black
blob
pill?
of
Yeah.
black, you know? So I don't know to what extent the Devers have this in mind. I find myself thinking like probably they did, but who knows? Maybe they did, maybe they did not. Um, but still like where I think it lines up is in the idea of being black pilled, there is something very like nihilistic, right?
Mm,
The world is wrong, the world cannot be saved, right? Which is very much kind of Henry's position.
yes.
And he tells us, or he tells Will, that he chose this. You know, the order of things is a little bit wonky, but I would also put in mind of the extent to which in that season 4, Henry wanted 11 to join him or whatever. She
Hmm.
rejects him, right?
Yeah.
So you do also have that element of being rejected by a woman, as it were, involved there.
Yes.
So, you
Yeah.
know, um, again, I don't know that I want to pound the table for this. But again, putting all this together in my mind, it sort of makes sense in terms of like, okay, well, how do you deal with talking about puberty and drives and impulses and so on? That's not just, sexuality and so on, but also what someone like Sigmund Freud would call the death drive,
Mm-hmm.
um, where so I am reading Henry as failing along these lines, I guess, right? Like he's giving into the darkness, he's deciding
Yeah.
that the world is wrong and irredeemable,
Mm-hmm.
and even though he talks about making it better, he means by collapsing it together with the abyss, right?
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is basically destroying it. So, insofar as he tells Will that he chose this, I do believe him, you
Mm-hmm.
know. At the same time, I think the problem you were pointing to is, if we interpret it in the way I've suggested, even, is there also a problem in the real world? I mean, if you think about incel culture and so on and so forth, there's something about it that's very sad in my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. And this sense of the if it is a choice that's been given to Henry, think about it in that context or in the context of our world, that are there some things wrong with our world and some things wrong with what Henry's presented? Absolutely. But that the solution to that is to then destroy it or to burn it down or to say the choice is live in the wrong or destroy this whole thing is yeah that's to me the definition of being Blackville, that those are the only options to
Yeah,
things. And it seems like that's sort of what I struggle with is as Henry picks up this thing, whatever it is that he sees in the cave, whatever it is, that it almost does seem to take control of him and cause him to be violent and aggressive towards this person. But was there a moment where it was inescapable at that point? It doesn't seem like it, but over time he got so far down, took so many black pills, as it were, that it was, at that point it was too late.
yeah. And again, I mean, I think this is going to relate to something else we'll definitely talk about before we're done. But I believe him when he says that he chose it, right? He says he could have resisted, but he
Hmm.
ultimately chose not to. When did he choose? I think that there is a reading of this where you could argue he didn't really make that decision until after his confrontation with 11 in the lab that we saw in season 4.
Right.
So it's like it's not that he's immediately taken over. But I don't know. I find it like significant that then, if you take this kind of interpretation, Stranger Things is setting this up as the big bad in a way, right? Like that
Yeah.
there's this risk, there's this possible path, right? And so even if Holly and Derek and the others, like they're definitely being manipulated, but
Hmm.
it's also there that they are on board with it until you manage to break them free ultimately,
That's right. That's right.
and that's the win, that for young people to not give in to that kind of impulse,
Yeah, the,
which
the
I guess
idea that Henry has convinced all of the kids that everybody else is the monster. Max is the monster. The things that they see, the things back in the world, their parents are being, controlled, manipulated by the monster. Henry's the only one that can save them. Yeah, that idea I think also resonates exactly with what you're saying. Convincing these young what's the word I'm trying to
yeah,
say here? Manipulatable minds that everything out there is wrong. Everything out there is the monster is evil, and so we have to do something to stop that. I mean, it's sort of frighteningly realistic that that's the path that Henry chooses to make, to succeed the thing that the mind player wants him to succeed in.
right, yeah. But whereas in the real world, we probably be thinking about, I don't know, whatever, internet forum
Yeah.
or that sort of thing. I saw at least one person kind of complaining on social media that they beat the big bad too easily.
Mm.
And I don't know what you think about this, but I guess this also relates to the complaint I've seen about maybe feeling padded or whatever. In your summary, you referred to it as an epilogue. That's fair. I was thinking of it as, the denouement. But ultimately, I want to argue that personally, I think it's all warranted, and this show needed a 45-minute denouement. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think these characters deserved something like that.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of comparisons. So, for example, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the long epilogue, multiple epilogues that seems to have. But when you've spent, what is this now, 50, 60 some odd hours with these characters, and you're just invested with who they were, who they have grown up with, and you literally, in some cases, people have grown up with them. And I was just as invested as what's going to happen to them as what it would take to destroy the Mind Flayer, right? So
Hmm.
that's why I thought the epilogue lengthy, yes, but I thought was one of the more resonant, emotional, effective pieces of the finale and really the whole season.
Yeah, I agree. So we're on the same page about that. Like, I think it could have even been a little bit longer potentially. And I've previously complained about the length of some of these episodes and so on, but um and I
No,
and I
my
also
my my one, this is the nittiest of nitpicks. I wanted of all the characters we could have brought back or seen in that, I wanted Susie to show up in the epilogue. Dustin's graduation at college, you know, somewhere. And it's been funny. I've looked a little bit into this. The actress who plays Susie has been responding to a lot of social media posts that she wishes as well that had
oh really?
happened, but she was not asked to be part of it apparently.
That's weird. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know I saw something where the other guy, the pizza guy,
Yeah.
he didn't want to be in this or something.
Yeah. He had
Um,
he had other things going on or whatever. But yeah,
can't
he was
remember
not
the
in
details.
there. Yeah. Anyway, that's just a very personal thing, which they could have done. But I'll live through it.
Speaking of this kind of dangling thread, there's some other stuff we still need to talk about for sure. That's more important. Um, what happened to the guys who beat up Dustin?
Did they graduate?
It's like seriously, because the one guy in particular, I can't even remember his name now, but he was kind of central in season 4.
He was one of the
Um,
members of the basketball team. Yeah.
and at a certain point, I thought maybe he might be on a path of redemption or something,
hmm
even. But then, from what we see of him in season 5, doesn't seem like that at all.
No, no.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I guess presumably they graduate, they go on with their lives or whatever. But I mean, the most charitable I can be there is to recognize if the show is about what I've been suggesting it's been about, and so on and so forth. Like not everyone succeeds, right?
Yeah.
And also the idea that our protagonists could band together and ultimately defeat these dark forces like once and for all.
hmm
Um, if we're, allegorically interpreting that back to the real world, that's not super plausible either.
That's
If
right.
you take it as like their personal journey or whatever, sure, but taking it,
Mhm.
broadly, the problems would persist. So, there's always that question of clearly within the show, this sort of supernatural stuff is real,
Yeah.
so
And I think this sort of the comparing it to reality that is why I think there's been a lot of criticism, maybe cynicism of the idea that all of this destruction and chaos and all of this happening, and then we flip the page 18 months later and everything's rebuilt, everything's idyllic, everything's back the way it should be. Just that compared to reality doesn't seem to equate.
yeah, so okay, good. So we need to talk about the military a bit more, and I have some thoughts on that. I'm sure you do too. And of course, we need to talk about 11 a bit more. And there's a way in
Mm-hmm.
which those things will tie together. Let's start with the military though, just in general. One of the things that I found striking, particularly in season 5, and like maybe this thought should go back further than this, I don't know. But one of the things I found striking was just how willing our friends were to just kill these soldiers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And by all appearances, the show, Stranger Things, doesn't question that at all.
No, no.
Any thoughts
The
on that?
the role and labels that this show has always given to military or authority figures has always been quite interesting to me, right? And the idea that They are they are pursuing things. They are under a specific mission. They are a part of a machine that is just worth destroying at all costs. All the way back to Brenner and his goons in season one, right? That's just, 11, kill them all. Whatever it takes. And so that's sort of heightened here in this season, this idea that, well, clearly the military is there for nefarious purposes. They're there to experiment on innocent women. They're there to capture Eleven and use her for the rest of her life. So because of that, yeah, that gives us license to just slaughter them.
Mhm.
But again, there's never been, besides, I forget the character's name, Mad About You guy, who was
Paul
Eleven's
Reiser,
ally.
yeah.
Yeah, Paul Reiser. He's
I
the
read the
only
character's name
example.
too. Yeah.
He's the only example of authority figure that seemed to be on the quote unquote good side. All the others have just been, yeah, they're worth stepping on, destroying whatever it takes to get to get past them.
Yeah, so part of the reason I thought this was interesting is um we haven't really talked much today about it, but of course everyone knows how Stranger Things plays on nostalgia in a certain way, and the 1980s is its setting, but then it also in its style is
Hmm.
very reminiscent of stuff from the 80s. I know you and I have talked about this before, even if not on the podcast, that it's like an amalgamation of all these films we saw when we were kids or whatever. But in those movies, if even if the military were the bad guys, they would be like somehow just like knocking them out with an elbow in the corner or
Hmm.
something. So it's really striking to me how here it's just like no, it's just straight up killing, and presented in a way where it's like that's completely justifiable.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't think that it would be quite right to line that up directly with like the US military in the real world as a criticism of militarism or whatever. I mean, there's
Hmm.
something there. There's not nothing there,
Yeah.
but I don't think that that's really the point. And I started thinking that the military in the show um, really represents even more broadly, not just like the military industrial complex or whatever, but like all the repressive forms of, yeah, the patriarchy
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything, right?
Yeah.
Such that when it comes down to it, even um, Vecna's not the big bad, the military is.
Yeah, it almost seems like this season in particular made the military out to be an arm or a function of the mind flayer. They are there to take these women, get the right blood, make more Henrys, make more Vecnas, so that there can be a level of control that they have, not realizing that, or maybe they do realize that they actually won't have the control, that the mind flayer has the control of these people, but yet they are used as a tool of the mind flayer. And that's why I think again our team or our band of kids feels justified in in disposing of them so easily.
Yeah, right. So I mean, going back even, we're basically told that it was them or Brenner, right, who's like opening up the upside down, like letting these forces into the world or whatever, right? So that they're bearing that responsibility, and then the experiments and so on and so forth on 11, but also on Henry. Um, the guy in the cave that we see Henry confront in his memory
Yes. Yes.
has a lanyard, has like a badge. He's
Yep.
from the lab,
Correct.
I
Yeah.
think, right? So I don't know what he's doing exactly. This is left to our speculation a little bit. He's decided to run away with a
That's the
briefcase.
spin-off. That's the spin-off, my friend.
Um, and it's like, okay, I guess I'm interested in that. But
Yeah.
I mean, so again, like how do we interpret this more symbolically, more thematically? It's the way in which I feel like the powers that be um aren't afraid of the monsters and the dark forces so
Mhm.
much as they want to harness them. They want to
Correct. Yep.
weaponize them,
Yep.
right? And also the rigid kind of hierarchical structure that gets represented
Yeah.
here. to fit into places in relation to that power structure.
Yeah.
That is the big bad in Stranger Things, I think, to the extent that, the message, the moral, the lesson of the story, thinking about all of our friends or the protagonists of the show, is kind of along the lines of dare to be different, be
Yeah.
queer,
Yeah.
be a weirdo,
Yeah.
be a nerd who plays Dungeons and Dragons, own it,
Right. Exactly.
as opposed to I have to fit these established norms about masculinity or whatever, it's
Right.
broader than that. Thinking back to those bullies who just disappeared from the story. But
Yeah.
so okay, so I think that's why it's presented as just totally okay to kill the soldiers,
Mhm.
because it's almost like they're presented in a way where it's almost like they aren't even individual people so much as
Correct.
cogs in this machine, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the machine remains undefeated at the end of the
Hmm.
story. Well, going back a little bit, they reintroduced Callie, as you mentioned previously, and she tells Eleven that after they destroy Henry, um, then they're gonna destroy the Upside Down, that they need to stay behind
Right.
because Dr. K and then everyone that will try to capture them
Right.
and do it all over again. And at one level, she's right about that, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what they're coming out of the Upside Down. There's the military, and
We
what they
see it.
care
Yeah.
about is
Yeah.
capturing 11. Um, so we need to talk about though. Then we need to talk about 11's choice, and then also the ambiguity the show presents us with down the line.
Yeah. So I think I've had this conversation with a couple of people. So we are left with a couple things that based on what we see must be true, right? The upside down is destroyed. Um, with the upside down being destroyed, so are apparently dozens of pregnant women who are being
Right.
transfused with this blood. That they were attempting to create more of these characters or more of these beings that can do this thing. And so the mechanism or the machine that can do all of this is being destroyed no matter what 11 does. But this sense of, well, the military is not in the upside down with us, at least to a great extent. We cannot expose ourselves to this, again, whatever, the military, the powers that be, the authority, whatever it is, so that they have the opportunity to do it again. Um, I mean, I have varying thoughts on, what actually is Eleven's fate, but some people are like, oh, it doesn't make sense that Eleven would have to do that. I'm more on the side of it does make sense that she at least has to do it or give the appearances that she has done it.
Right, because they're never going to stop, right?
Right.
And that's where, I mean, I almost got ahead of myself. I like what they did here ultimately. Um, but when Callie was first presenting it to 11, I was also sitting here going, no, 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 you
Yeah.
can't give up, right?
Yeah.
Um, however, the way things play out isn't quite like that insofar as 11 is trying to leave, but that
Hmm.
military is there, and then she makes the decision. And again, we'll talk about the ambiguity more here in a moment, but I'm trying to focus first on the argument you get from Callie and that question about whether this makes sense that you were referencing. And I do think that it does, insofar as it's been well established in the story that this is what the military wants, this is what Dr. K wants. And this is also what I would say in reference to that kind of time jump that occurs in the series.
Hmm.
They don't care about any of these other people. You
No,
know what I mean?
no.
Like we just assume they let them all go, right? 11's gone. Oh, they were only doing
Yeah.
this because they were after 11, you know? Um, whatever's going on with all these other people, there's like, we don't even want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I don't know how plausible that is either. I'd expect that they'd have some interest in punishing these people who've been killing soldiers, but whatever. Thematically, I think it more or less works. Um, what I struggle with a little bit is, I guess, in this that they were so Henry. I guess putting things together, Henry was originally infected, whatever term you want to use,
Mhm.
and then they were infusing 11 and these other kids with his blood. Am I right? Is that what they tell us? Or did I thought 11 already was presenting abilities before she went to the lab, but I guess I don't remember earlier seasons
Yeah,
super
so you need to go
well.
back and look at the story with Levin and her mom and how that came to be. I want to say though that it was Eleven was taken from her mom, um, but I don't recall if it was because of certain things that she showed or just because her mom was in this sort of psychotic state, and so she was taken from her and said, "Okay, well here's an orphan child we can use to run these experiments."
Yeah, I don't know. If if the story is that it all stems from Henry and further all stems from whatever the black pill oval, goo thing is in the cave that he becomes infected with, I, I I struggle to put it any other way. I don't like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
If that's the story, I don't like it. I don't like.
Hmm.
I don't think it should be. So, but and there are some indications that it was. In contrast, I'd always thought that 11 and her powers were something more innate to her,
Yeah.
and then maybe this would require revisiting things a little bit. Regardless, Kali basically suggests that, hey, look, these scientists have been trying to do this with my blood and it's not working.
Hmm.
Your blood is going to work. Okay. Maybe that hangs together, right? Like maybe it is because 11's powers had a distinct source of their own or something. Um, Regardless, I feel like we've just wandered into the weeds a bit. Um,
Yeah, I always thought that Kali and Levin's abilities were very similar. Maybe because of training and because of other things, Levin's have been heightened over time. But the sense that, well, these are two of the people that it's worked, and so those are two of the people that we need, or that we must have to complete these experiments and draw out of them what we need to make more of these. Um, but yeah, Levin does seem to be the linchpin in all of this. Um,
See, I'm really like, okay, let me just tell you where I want to go. Like in interpreting this, in line with what I was saying before. With 11, I want to go in the direction of interpreting her powers in relation to the feminine in some way or something, right? Like as opposed
mhm.
to Henry as the masculine kind of pole of things, but I don't know. I don't know if that kind of interpretation really holds up. Either way, I do think it makes sense when it comes down to it, for her to decide that the worst thing would be to be captured by the military and the way they're
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
perpetuate this cycle.
yeah.
So even if it is, even if she dies, right, when the upside down
Mhm.
collapses, I think the logic there makes sense. Do
Yeah.
you agree? I think you said you did already.
Yeah, I I do. I think that whether it was Kali's influence or not, or whether it's her understanding of what these people mean to her and what it means to make sure that this all ends, I think that the right choice is for her to die. And it has to be her choice. It has to be something where it happens by what she decides or she chooses to stay behind or whatever it is. But I think whether it's Kali's influence or not, she is convinced that this must end. And the only way that it ends is not with her hiding, because somehow that will come be uncovered, that will be discovered, whatever it is. I think my read on the do you believe or do you not believe question, or what happened to her in her ambiguous ending is my belief is that she decided to stay behind and took her life so this will end. I think that's the best possible outcome, and she wanted the best possible outcome.
Interesting. Okay. So I think we disagree. But I think, look, I think the logic there makes sense. So then we get Mike's story that
Hmm.
no, she didn't really, because Callie didn't really die. Callie was still alive behind the scenes. She's like sort of pretending to be dead. Is that plausible? No.
No.
Further, Mike says, you know, how could the mage have cast a spell because of the dampeners, right? The things the military has. That I think is a fair point, and he's inspired by the sound of graduation or whatever. But I don't know that she needed to do anything with her powers at that point, right? She just needed to like stay in the upside down as it got exploded with C4.
This is exactly the nitpick that I have. Number one, that Kali survived and was able to, despite that horrific wound that we saw, conjure up these powers to make her appear as though she was there, while at the same time being able to whatever it is, to pull a Harry Potter reference, the invisibility cloak allowed her to escape at the same time. And so I find that a little bit implausible. And then I find the fact that, yeah, there was, well, what did the dampeners do at that moment to 11? There was nothing that she was doing unless she was, I don't know. It just seemed like Kali was sort of the key to all of this, but I don't see how Kali could have actually done all that from her position and from what happened to her.
Right. So let me see if I can pull this off the way that I'm hoping I can. What I want to suggest ultimately, Ryan, is the question is whether you believe
Mhm.
that she could have escaped. She could have gotten away from what I've suggested we interpret as the like powers that be of the world, the
Hmm.
patriarchy, the heteronormative, repressive structures that are all that you could get out of it. You
Yeah.
could elude its grasp, right? Um, Not destroy it, right? It's like the show agrees that would be implausible, right? Like there's no way you could destroy it. But could she have gotten away, right?
Hmm.
And because look, I agree with everything that you said insofar as if we're kind of realistic about it, is it plausible that Callie survived in order to make 11 invisible?
Yeah.
No. Is it like it's much more plausible that she did sacrifice or that she did decide to die with the collapse
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
upside down.
Yeah.
Like it's like, but that's almost the cold, cynical reading. And I mean, I guess I don't know if it's quite cynical, but the realism of it, right?
Hmm.
Again, trying to pull it back to the real world a little bit, the way in which people can precisely present a certain kind of cynicism as realism, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's like, what? You think we can make the world a better place? Are you stupid? Look at the world. It's obviously not possible, right? And I mean, but part of the point is, yeah, you look at the world, it does not seem possible,
Yeah.
right? Like, so it's precisely that kind of question of do you choose to believe in the impossible almost?
Hmm.
Um, in that
Yeah.
sense of liberation or escaping the grasp of power or something like that.
And I think a part of that is maybe another layer of it is, do you believe in a world where 11 escaped undetected and she's off living her life, and she is going to end up for her entire life living in a world where she does not ever encounter something where she sees this would be helped, benefited um, someone would be aided by me using the powers that I have to do that. No one else can do this, only I can. And yet I cannot ever get involved. I cannot ever display my powers. I cannot ever do the things I need to do to help anyone or anything or any situation or destroy any evil for the rest of my life. So I stay undetected and this thing doesn't happen again. I don't think that after all of her adventures and after all that she's done with this group that she can just stay undercover for her entire life unless she is in a world where she's witnessing no tragedy, no problems, no one being taken advantage of. And I just don't believe in that world either.
Yeah, I get it. It's fair. I don't think it's plausible. That's where this is one of those things people are going to be debating for years. It reminds me of the end of The Leftovers.
Mm.
Um, and we don't want to get into that in spoiler territory with that. But my
Right,
line
right.
on that is very similar. The
Yeah.
question is whether you believe. The question is not the question is not is it true, is what I'm trying to say, right? Like if
Yes.
you're getting into that space of trying to find evidence and sort of prove that it's true or not true, even on the basis of what happens in the show, um, or do what you were just doing in terms of is it plausible that she'd be able to go live out her life and never be tempted to like use her powers in order to save someone or whatever. Like, okay, maybe it's not plausible, and so on. So I don't mean to disagree with that. What I do again want to suggest is that the importance is in how when they're sitting around that table and Mike tells that story,
Yeah.
they all say they believe.
Hmm.
And I think that's the point, is that question of can you believe that she got away?
Yeah.
Like, can we believe that it's possible that the good guys completely won?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and like maybe you can't. So it's
And I like
interesting in that way.
the thematic element of as they leave that basement and leave their childhood behind, they're also faced with the question of do you believe as you go into this next phase, as the older four are entering into their professional lives, as the group of five is going into their college age and becoming adults, do you believe that you can do something about what you're about to face, right? You're about to leave your parents' basement and sort of the comforts of that and go into a real world. What can you do about it? Do you believe that you can? So there's just lots of layers of this question. I think that that is one of the reasons why this finale worked for me, whereas maybe it didn't work for a lot of people. That sort of being left with this question of what can you do now that you're leaving certain things behind. Um, there are interesting questions to debate as this series closes.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. And yeah, that you can broaden it out in that way, right? Do you believe that you can be yourself, be true to yourself, be who you want to be, pursue what you want out of life without getting crushed by those forces of,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, the reality.
Right.
It's not realistic. You can't. Majoring in art history. What are you? Anyway, but it's like that with a lot of their goals, right? Like Jonathan's trying to make a movie.
Right, right, right.
Nancy's trying to make it as a journalist,
Yeah.
um, and so on. Yeah,
Yes, it's
but
seen a lot of people comment on Nancy's gonna have a nice life for about 20 years and it's all gonna come crashing down on her.
yeah, that's kind of sad to think about. Like Nancy, the successful journalist, who all of a sudden gets laid off in the aughts. Um, but anyway, that's getting away from the show. Let's see. Other things we didn't really talk about Joyce much or Hopper much. Um, Anything you want to say about them?
Yeah, I think I think a lot about Joyce in season one and who she is, what she's fighting against, the lengths that she will go to protect her son. And we see a lot of sort of motherly conversations and motherly comforting in season five. But other than that, she's just not given much to do. I sort of miss the Joyce from season one where she is fighting against everything that's possible to get her son back. Obviously, she's not fighting to rescue her son in season five, but maybe because of that, she's just not the same character that I saw in seasons one and two specifically.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I find myself thinking about though is it's also the story of these adults grappling with their kids,
Hmm.
coming of age and pubescence and all of that, right?
Yeah.
And
At least the ones that care about where their kids are all the time. There are several who don't.
well, so but at that level, I think what you say about Joyce is fair. But what we do see here in the final season is her really coming to an acceptance of letting Will be himself, make decisions for himself, and so on. I mean, as I recall
Correct.
earlier
Yeah.
in the season, she was like, "Oh no, Will, you can't go fight
Yeah.
evil because you might get hurt." And there's a certain kind of turning point there
Yeah.
where,
You're right. Both Joyce in the first round of episodes and Hopper in this finale and other places throughout the season have to let go in a sense and let their quote unquote kids be who they are supposed to be.
yeah, and come to terms with that,
Yeah.
and I think that works. And Hopper's character development has been interesting, and I think well done. You think about what he says to Mike, convincing him to go to graduation. He's got these
Yeah.
two paths.
Yeah.
It's like so super obvious as he describes the first path that he's talking about himself.
Talking about himself. Yeah.
Um,
That's right.
but that he's found a way to just accept it and move on also.
Mhm.
So that's what we're getting across the board. Let's see. We also didn't really talk about Max or Lucas all that much, I suppose. Um, One thing that occurred to me was that the show does very little, almost nothing, in relation to the idea that you've got an interracial couple in
Mhm.
1987.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was not something you were likely to see, particularly you're not likely to see maybe in a place like small town Indiana. But I thought that they were, in terms of couples, they were the best couple on the show.
No, they were
Um,
great, and it's like, all right, I guess the show just didn't want to get into that. But I mean, it was like, man, I remember when what's the Spike Lee movie, Jungle Fever?
Jungle Fever, yes, yes,
I
1990
remember
maybe.
when. You remember when that movie came out?
Yeah, absolutely.
It was like a big deal, and
That's right.
that was a few years after when Stranger Things is set.
That's right.
So it's maybe an aside, but I mean, if you want to take it on directly, it's also you could take it as the show saying, no, this is okay, you go for it,
Mm,
you do it because you love each other,
right.
and who cares that society is going to have these negative views, but the show doesn't really explore those
Yeah.
negative views. And yeah, I mean, I guess we've been talking for a while. Um, Anything else you want to hit on before we wrap up here?
Um, no, I think that covers all the characters and different beats that I wanted to hit on. Maybe just a final thought that it it may be a long time, maybe ever before there is a show that captures this much attention again.
Yeah.
Um, we're so proliferated in the things that we can watch and the ways that we watch them and when we watch them and how we watch them. I don't know, this hit at the right time and hit the right beats of nostalgia. Even things I think about now, various Game of Thrones properties or network television, or you just don't see things hitting like this. So I wonder if there will be a next thing like this again.
Yeah, I found myself wondering that too. And particularly how long it went on. I mean, and part of that was production delays and so
Yeah,
on. Be honest about that. But
yeah, yeah,
regardless, that the show came out originally in 2016, and we don't get many shows that are in our lives for 9 years
yeah. Right.
anymore. It seems like it's much more common for a series to run for maybe 3 or 4 seasons if we're lucky,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and they're shorter seasons than when we were younger too. It was like, no, not 4 22 episode seasons, 4 8 episode seasons.
That's right. That's
Oh, okay.
right.
That's only 32 episodes. Okay. Um, but yeah, so I don't know. I'm curious as well. We don't know what's on the horizon, as far as that goes.
Yeah.
But something like this that has such broad appeal,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see if there is anything ever again. I don't know,
Yeah.
in terms of the broad
That
appeal of
that
adults to children and all of that.
that may be the thing. So the group of 16 or 17 people that we went to the theater with on New Year's Eve to watch this were from about ages 13 to probably 53.
Yeah,
What show again will capture that kind of audience? That will be hard to do.
for sure. All right. Well, I guess that does it for Stranger Things. Thanks always for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. So please do leave us a good rating, review, all that good stuff. If you're on YouTube, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Greatly appreciate it. If you want to follow TV Obsessive on social media, search for TV Obsessive, and you should find us. And as always, encourage you to check out the website. Go to TVObsessive.com. And you find written work on all sorts of TV, past and present, and into the future. We do have some things on Stranger Things there, on previous seasons. Some of these ideas I've been talking about today have been percolating in my mind in a way that might become something written. We'll see. Can I pull it off? Is the question. Can I pull it off in a way I'm happy with, or am I satisfied with having talked about it on the podcast? Not positive yet, but you can keep an eye out for that. And next up, we're planning on really kind of switching gears and talking about
Yeah.
Hijack.
Yeah, man.
Hijack season 2. So if you want to keep up with the pod week to week and so on, go check out season 1. It's a fun action thriller kind of show. And we'll see you next time.
All right, looking forward to it. We'll see you then.